Hello, this is Kev.
And Lil. We're discussing relationships in all of its forms and everything in between.
We've been together over 30 years. We've seen some things together and apart.
So if you want to laugh or need advice, come spend some time with Kev and Lil.
Have we met? Hello, everybody. So we are back, and we are dealing with adult children. Funny enough, we are sort of adult children at this point in our lives. But we've got a couple ourselves. We've dealt with a few, and it's interesting because you know I well, not that I never, but I didn't think of this too much as I was growing up. But I guess yeah. As the saying goes, you're always a kid to your parents. Um, but I think there's certain rules to that, and maybe there's certain things that we have to remind ourselves of as well, being the parent as well as the child. Uh, and I used to say when our kids would turn 18, let's say, and they would think, "Oh, well, I'm an adult now." And in my mind, I'm going, "No, you're not. You're of age. You can vote if you need to enlist to go into the military, sure, but you're not an adult yet." And there's a saying that goes, "You're not grown up until you know how to communicate, apologize, be truthful, and accept accountability without blaming someone else."
Mm-hmm.
And even for me, even into my 20s, I don't know if I was still even became an adult at that point, just because I still had a lot to learn.
Some people don't grow up, period.
Uh,
And especially nowadays with the economy the way it is, it's just kids that have moved out wind up moving back in. It could be financial, it could be a multitude of things.
yeah, people fall on hard times
Mm-hmm.
too. I mean,
Certain
they're doing well
circumstances make
and
them
things
move back
change
in.
and life changes for them. You know what I mean? I remember my oldest brother at one point when he was getting divorced. He moved in with my parents, and he was in his 30s, in his late 30s at that time, and it was hard. It was hard. That didn't last long. Let me tell you, he stayed there for a couple weeks, and then he had to go. Yeah, just because it was a long time since maybe not even in his 30s. It might have been in his 40s. I'm not even sure what that age
Yeah, it's
was.
hard. It's hard moving back to under your parents' roof.
There's a lot of sayings out there. Once you carry your own water, you'll learn the value of every drop. You know, just because just because you think you've moved out, or better yet, you think you're working, or you've graduated, or you've had children yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to grow up quickly at that point, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've become an adult. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of that I have a personal phrase that I like to use, and I feel that it ranges in age, sometimes from like 14 maybe to about 28,
Mm.
and I call it SAP. I've been saying that forever, right, honey?
Yep.
And SAP stands for the selfish asshole phase, because let's be honest, you're at that age, yeah, you pretty much are. You're a selfish asshole. You think you know it all. The know-it-all syndrome. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Your parents don't understand what
Your
you're going
friends or your
through. You
family.
know, the things are different now, and no, it ain't. No, no, maybe there's advances in technology, but you're still an asshole. Doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter what decade it is, or century, or for whatever generation, from baby boomer to Gen X to Gen Pendejo. or gendejo, I should start calling them. That means asshole in another language, in Spanish, so to speak.
Not really, but okay.
But you know what? The meaning is still there, and it's just funny that the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's just again, you think you know it all, and and it's tough. It's tough
Well,
for both sides.
yeah. Well, that's when you learn you set boundaries. You need to set boundaries with your adult children. I don't know, like if you're gonna live here, you're gonna have to pay for, let's say, electricity, or divvy up certain utilities, or chip in for groceries, stuff like that.
Yeah, man, eggs are expensive, dude. $10.
That was our youngest.
That was our current sap. But yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, you love them to death. You love them. You love them to death, but hey, it's just they still. There's just certain things that they think they know, and then it's your fault too. Don't get me wrong. You don't take into acknowledgement that they may know something that you don't.
Yeah, that's I
It's
was going
true.
to say something like that. But talking about boundaries, you have to stop repeating some behaviors, right? When you set boundaries, you got to stop making excuses for them. You got to stop supporting them financially. You have to stop feeling guilty. That's a big one for me, because I'm like, oh, poor baby, or whatever. I got to stop feeling guilty. I don't know. It's just, you got to implement boundaries. You got to implement rules, and you got to stick with them. Like you say, my house, my rules.
Yeah, right. I've heard that. I heard that back in the day too.
Yeah.
It's I was reading I was doing some research on adult children. I mean, we were gonna do this sort of episode with a friend of ours, but we felt that not that we didn't have enough experience ourselves for this one.
We have two adult
I think we can tackle this. But certain scenarios were coming up in some of my research, like like when your adult child blames you for everything.
No.
I was doing this. I know I was doing this at one point. And one of the things you can try to do is validate their feelings. Again, set the boundaries and communicate that you're available for them. Let them know that their feelings are important and that you understand why they might be angry. Of course, listening. You can hear what they're saying, but are you actually listening to them?
Yeah.
Acknowledge that you see things differently, because
Yeah.
maybe there was a reason for the way you were.
Yes. Like there's a saying that it says, understand their culture. Because it's different. I mean, even though they say, oh, you don't understand, it's different. Yes, sometimes things do change, but some things also stay the same. So it's like you said, you have to try and understand where they're coming from, like their views. Sometimes their views change from ours as they grow, and technology is a big thing for these new generations coming up. They do everything through technology. At least my husband and I, we're tech savvy somewhat, but
We get by.
yeah,
We can
but
get by.
our generation, these coming generations, they do everything through technology. They date through technology. They work. They socialize. They do everything with technology. So we have to, that's a different.
Let's be honest. Do they really socialize? I don't call.
Well,
I don't consider it. I mean, I guess the way
supposedly
they do it is.
There's a
But
study that supposedly 39%, that's how they meet, and they meet their significant other through technology. For me, that's big.
yeah, I guess
Because we
I
did
guess.
everything, going to the club and go to the bar. going out.
I still
They
would
do
rather
everything through
meet someone that way.
technology.
I'd rather not get catfished. I'd rather I'm a see, touch, smell,
Okay.
person.
Ew.
What?
Smell.
What? You don't like to see, touch, smell me?
Oh my
I
God.
don't. I got a
Why do
decent
you
scent
always
nowadays.
go
I
to the
tell.
dark side?
I got
Let's
what? I'm
get
just
reel it
saying.
back in, buddy. Let's go. Okay. How about talking about disrespectful and manipulative adult children?
Oh, well, yeah. That's again that you got to set those boundaries, and they have to be clear. You have to be consistent, and you have to reinforce them, because just by saying it or thinking it you have to be consistent with it.
And sometimes I also think it's our fault. Like they feel entitled because we did so much for them, and then when they reach a certain age, they're like, "Oh, well, you have to." Oh, excuse me? I don't have to do jack.
Maybe Jill, but Jack, I don't know. No, but seriously, yeah, that I see a lot. And it goes, and again, you have to. That goes with setting realistic expectations too. It's just about with those boundaries. You have to set those expectations that, okay, listen, all right, I am here for you now, and this is my availability to you then. You have to communicate that. And you know me, I'm a huge communicator. To the point that it's like, oh my God, what is he gonna say now?
He repeats himself over
I
and
admit that
over.
I say things I repeat all the time.
And by the way, guys, a lot of these things we're speaking from experience. Like we said, we have 2 adult children, so it's not like we're talking out of our butts. Some things we might not know because we have not experienced. Like for example, knock on wood, children that are having substance abuse issues.
We've been
That
lucky
they
with that.
you have to take. Well, you don't have to take them back in, but a lot of parents take the responsibility of helping them through their steps or what have you. You don't want to see your child in the street. So thank God we haven't had that experience, but we've seen other people that have been going through it. That's another adult children issue.
It's an adult, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we say this all the time, right? We've been lucky in certain things. I call it luck. Some people call it a blessing. I call it both. It certainly can be both.
Yes.
You know, it- and we can't speak on that.
No.
Because again, we don't have experience with that.
Or-
if we come across someone or if someone's listening that has, you can certainly comment. You can certainly give us your comments, and we'll voice it
And we
in a
can
later
also make
time
that into
for
an
you.
episode. That in itself can be a whole.
Oh my
episode.
gosh! Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I would love to speak on it. I mean, just because I haven't had that experience,
Or children with disabilities.
again, another thing
I
that
always see a child with disability, and I look at the parents, and I'm like, my biggest fear. Once again, we're blessed. Our children don't have disabilities.
well,
Laziness is not a disability.
they got some disabilities.
hard-headedness is not a
just nothing that
disability.
you'll see
But
visibly, but they're
my
there.
my biggest fear is if I were a parent with a child with disability, it's like, what will happen to this child when I'm gone? Like, who will take my disabled child on?
Right.
And now, once again, we don't have that experience. If you would like to speak on that, once again, we could do an episode on that too. So please comment, reach out to us. We would love to hear from you regarding that, because unfortunately we can't speak on that.
Right. I unfortunately give my opinion on a lot of things. Unfortunately, just because I can, and I try to say, hey, I'm on the outside looking in. So, if I speak out of turn, let me know, and I'll adjust it if I can. But I always try to say, hey, this is just what I'm seeing from my point of view. But as far as communicating with adult children, again, you gotta let them know when you're available. You gotta remind them, hey, I'm here to provide encouragement, support if needed. Um, and then of course I always had, and even to this day I still struggle with anger, where I'll flip out very quickly.
Yeah.
Not as often as I used to, but I still do it. And I'll let them know. Listen, you're aware of my reactive side, and expressing it I'm helping. It's helping me to stay calmer, just because I'm trying to remind myself. Okay, you know what? Calm down. I don't know. Although I may have dealt with this in the past myself, yeah, things are slightly different now, and my sons are not me.
Yeah.
They. I got to remind myself they're their own people.
Exactly.
So when I do speak to them, like I remember having this argument or expressing myself to our oldest son a couple years ago, and I was saying something, and he goes, "Well, that's not true," and I said, "Okay, hold on a second. Maybe it's not true, but I'm gonna tell you that's how I feel." See, I turned that right around on it because I know how these kids love to do that. But this is how you're making me feel. And I said, well,
And you
this is
have
how I
every
feel.
right to feel
So
the
you
way you
can't
feel.
tell me now that I can't feel this way. Whether I'm right or wrong, at least I can tell you that. This is how I'm feeling. This is how what's happening is making me feel. And, he looked at me and he was like, he gave me the "you son of a bitch" look, like you got me. But again, it was more of a trick answer than anything, where I should have said, okay, you know what, maybe I'm coming out wrong, or maybe I'm reacting incorrectly. But again, it's a trigger for me, you know, and we've all got triggers, of course. You know, they ain't getting no bigger.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak on the point that, we have to, as parents, we have to know how to let go. Cuz that's another problem. We don't know how to let go. We enable these children. Adults, being them adults or not, we enable them. So we got to learn how to let go. I was reading something on the internet that you have to learn how to divorce your
Well,
children.
yeah, I guess that's one way of putting it.
And I mean, divorce is such a harsh word, but detach. You gotta let go. Like Kevin used to make fun of me with my youngest, well, actually with both of my boys. He's like, you gotta stop giving them the teat, or you gotta,
Yeah, man, you birthed them already. You don't need to hold on to them anymore.
And it's true. It's, even though it's hard, but we have to learn how to let go. We have to learn how to let them make their own mistakes, like learn from their mistakes, basically.
You know, and it's funny you say that, because I remember they've had girlfriends in the past, right? And I remember you looking at me and going, "Oh my God, this girl is not the girl for him." And this happened with both of them. And I'm standing there and I go, "Don't say anything."
No, not at all.
And you looked at me, but I know. And I said, "I know.
I
Trust
know.
me, I
But then
get
they'll
it."
run into their arms even faster. So I
you're
learned
just
how
like,
to stay shut.
so I learned, and unfortunately, I'm gonna say this. I sort of learned to manipulate it a little.
Don't
In
say that, because
you know,
then we're not going to be able to
no,
do
no,
anything.
because maybe manipulate's not the right word. Maybe steer them in the right direction. But I wouldn't say break up with them.
Oh, yeah, or you shouldn't be.
No,
or
you shouldn't be with that. I
do
would
this.
never say that. But I would definitely come up with scenarios, because whether I went through it, or I had a friend, or I knew of someone, I would always go, "Wow, that sounds like such and such, and they went through this and blah blah," and they'd look at me like, "Hey, that's what's happening to me now." And it worked every once in a while, and I go, "Wow, yeah, that, I'll tell you, it didn't work out for them," that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But again, it was up to them to decide when when that relationship was over, whether the girl broke up with them or vice versa, or it was mutual.
You got to let them make their own choices.
Exactly.
You got to trust.
You know,
You raise them right. You got to trust that they'll make the right decision.
and you're big time mama bear, where you're like, nope, don't hurt my kids. I will mess you up.
I will.
And-
I get. Listen, when it comes to kids, I don't know what it is, but definitely the mama bear comes out. Even if it's not my kids, someone else's child.
Yeah,
It
we
just-
got a story about that
guys,
one too.
No, we're not. Gonna
Oh,
talk
come on,
about
that's
that.
a fun
Nope,
story.
Nope, it's not happening.
That's a fun story.
So I was talking about unsolicited advice, right? I believe that unless you're asked for unless you're asked for advice, you shouldn't give it. Or if you want to, you're biting your tongue, you're like, I can't hold it anymore. You should ask for permission. You should say, can I give you advice?
Well, I usually, I have a lot of conversations, and a lot of times I'll look at them and I'll say, I'm here for you, whether even if it's people at work, I'll just go, okay. Are you just want me to listen to you? Because I don't mind just listening, but or do you want me to respond, or do you want to hear what I think? And 9 times out of 10 they're gonna say, yeah, let me hear what you think. Just because, and that's my way of going. Yeah, I knew you wanted to hear what I had to say, because if not, you wouldn't have come to me to begin with. But that's okay, and even telling me, no, you know what, I just needed to get it off my chest. I'm good with that too.
Yeah.
I'm very much good with that. And it's all about having that constructive conversation. You can try to agree to disagree instead of continuing to fight. You could, try to have that constructive conversation about this once you've calmed down. Because again, sometimes the conversations can agitate you as well. At least with me, I know that happens every once in a while. And then of course, this is a habit that I used to have big time, and now this I know I've definitely curbed. Try to say what you mean without saying it meanly. Try to keep your emotion out of it, or at least when you're saying it, remind yourself, look, this is still a person. This is still an adult. You don't need to be harsh. You can still get your point across without being the total douchebag.
You give them tough love, but not like overdo it.
And always, and this is something I tell people I work with all the time. Take that deep breath before responding, and then remain respectful and be open to listening and empathizing. Again, that word, there's a lot of key words that we've heard nowadays, from toxic relationships to empathy to accountability, and they all apply. They absolutely all apply. And a question came up: is it okay to distance? Is it okay to distance yourself from adult children?
Of course, I was gonna talk about that too, because think about it. Your role as a parent has changed. You definitely have to step back. You have to learn how to let go, or let go of control. Can't control it anymore. They're adults. You have to step back. Yeah, I think that's a big role, and it's hard for most of us. It's hard because you raise these children all your life. That's the only role you know. This is a whole new role. We've never had adult children before. This is our first,
Right.
So we have to learn that role, that new role. And that's
Learn
one
to
of
bite
them
your
is
tongue.
stepping back, let go of the controls, and let them control. I step back. I can't step back from the microphone because then you can't hear me. But yeah, absolutely. We can't be over involved. That's I'm gonna be honest with you. I think I feel like I am an over involved parent. I shouldn't be. I hate him so much. I have to learn how not to be over involved. I have to let them do their thing. Like, I cannot let them rely on me monetarily, or they can't rely on me for making decisions for themselves or making problem solving for them anymore. You would have to step back and like, what do you think you should do? Or what do you know? Whatever. Try and steer them, but you can't make those decisions for them anymore. And a big one for me while I was reading or researching this topic, a big one for me is like, do they depend on you for their happiness?
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, that was like, it took me back. And I was like, fudge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had to like think about it. I'm like, do
That's
they?
interesting. That's
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. I was like, shoot. Let me tell you, you don't. There's a saying in Spanish that says, "Tú no naces sabiendo." You are not born knowing it all. You got to learn things. And that was one of the things that I was like, shoot. I have to make sure that I am not an over-involved parent, because then that's enabling them. That's not letting go, not letting them make their own decisions, not letting them make their own mistakes. And I know it's so hard to step aside, to step in the sidelines and watching them make a mistake. It's so hard, but we have to let them learn by making those mistakes, because if not, they won't learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's healthy for them because that's how they will grow and learn. It's something that, and I'm surprised you haven't said it yet. And it's a common phrase, let go and let God. And I know because it's funny, you always say that.
Yeah.
You tend to say that all the time.
It was on my notes, but okay.
No,
Okay.
but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
You can
it's
say
okay.
it now if you want. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. That's my thing. It's hard to let go. But sometimes I have to say that saying. I'm like, okay, I'll take a deep breath and I'm like, let go and let God. Because I brought him up in, we taught him right. And we have to trust them to do right.
Right. I mean, and so over generations, right? I think back, like I didn't know my grandparents. They, at least I didn't know my grandfathers. They passed away before I was born, and my grandmothers. But I know throughout time we've gotten better, right? Just because I from what I understand, my grandfather, at least my father's father, was not a good man, or at least he wasn't a nice man. My father, God bless him, he knew what he knew. He wasn't exactly the best with us either. I was definitely not perfect with the boys. I know that I have gotten better, I want to say.
You always want to do better
Yeah,
than your parents.
so we, and the same goes for you.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, your mom was way too intrusive with us,
She
with
still
our
is.
relationship. Not so much now, but definitely. Oh my God, those first 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. I loved it when my aunt, Titi Gloria, if my cousins are listening, throw a big hug and a big kiss for me. But my aunt Gloria,
Oh man, when she put her in a place, that was the
she
most
put my
awesome
mother
thing
in her
ever.
place.
Oh my
She
gosh,
was like,
that's why she
"Who
became
are
my favorite.
you to get in between a matrimony?" Or who are
Oh.
you? She goes, "I have keys to my son's house, but do you see me barging in at whatever hour? No. I always call ahead of time. I call before I come and visit and ask, can I come visit?
Oh my goodness.
Who are you?" And she ripped her a new one, guys.
That was the most awesome
Kevin
time
fell in
ever.
love with my aunt. That's
Oh my God, I said, please tell me more. Please.
Can you move it?
Oh my goodness, you are my favorite. And she still is. God
Yes,
bless
God
that
bless
lady.
my Titi.
She was one of the few that welcomed me into your side of the family,
Oh, yeah.
because your mother definitely wasn't one.
Well, she was so into everything and she
I
was
mean,
so
I get the
controlling.
overprotectiveness. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I was just talking about her today with someone,
Mm.
and I was trying to. Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this now, but I'm like, I sort of get it because she was overprotective of
Well, she
you
was
and
a
your
single mom. I was
and our
everything
oldest
to her,
son,
and I still am. Yeah.
and and I get that, but man, she overstepped the boundaries big
Mm.
time. She overstepped the boundaries, you know, and it's funny because, like you say, like you always say, let go and let God. It's the children can't learn to call on God if they're always calling on us.
Yes. Yes.
You
Well,
know,
there's another thing I read. It says reinvent your relationship with your adult children. You're basically starting over again because
yeah,
it's a whole new
it's a
relationship.
totally new relationship.
We have an older child and he has children. We have three beautiful grandchildren and a wonderful daughter-in-law. And I try not to be like my mom. I always say this joking, and I think we've said in a past episode or two. I always tell Kevin, I don't know what did you do in your past life to have my mother as your mother-in-law, but I know I was good because I had my mother as my mother-in-law. One
You
thing
mean
that my
my mother?
mother-in-law does is she never gets involved. Unless we ask her, she will not give us any advice. She will have nothing to say unless we ask. She's like, she doesn't get
You,
involved.
not me.
With our relationship, I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. Because I don't tell her anything.
That's not.
That's
That's
what.
not. That's
Yes,
not.
that's
No,
true.
because when I'm there, she doesn't give her 2 cents unless I ask her.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Okay. You
it's
only
my
see.
relationship with my mother-in-law. See your way out of it. All right, sir? Okay. So I always try to learn from that with my children, especially my older child. I try not to get involved in their relationship and I try not to tell them how to raise their children. Listen, I always tell my husband, their kids, their rules, But let's face it, guys. Grandmas always give them candy and do stuff, but they don't need to know that, okay? But but I try not to get involved unless they ask me. I try not to be intrusive. Like they literally live 2 floors above, 2 floors up. And I remember when they first moved here from Florida, they moved back to New York. One of my oldest son's complaint was that we didn't see them enough or we didn't go visit them. I'm like, you live upstairs. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be like my mom, you know?
Exactly.
And he goes, well, mom, you're the opposite. You're like on the other spectrum. You're on the other side. I said, well, I don't want to intrude. I don't want to, that's your life. That's your family. If you want me, I'll come back. Just pick up the call and pick up the phone. I'll be up there in 2 seconds.
Exactly.
Out of breath, but I'll be upstairs in 2 seconds. I just didn't want to overstep. I didn't want to be like my mother was. And I would learn from my mother-in-law and I would be like, unless you ask me, I won't give you advice. Sometimes I say, well, can I give you advice? And then they'll say, yeah. And then I'll say something. But I am trying my best. I'm not perfect because we all know we're not. I probably do say stupid things that irks them or whatever. But that's what parents do to their kids, right? But it has taken me, and I'm still learning how to be a mom, a parent to adult children. We learn as we go. And
as many books as there are out there,
you have to live through it.
you take bits and pieces from all that stuff. You have to find your own way as well.
Yeah.
Just like your kids do, they need to find their own way, and you have to allow them to find their own way.
Yes.
You have to allow them to expand. And if and of course or you have that gut feeling that this is not going to work out, you have to say to yourself, you know what, just be there, support them emotionally if need, well, not even emotionally, but support them, as a listening ear, because the last thing, again, you don't want to be that emotional crutch either.
Yeah.
Because then you become the one that's getting manipulated.
Yeah, it's like adult children. I heard that adult children now are tapping into the bank account of mom and dad more than ever.
Yeah, well, I think the bank account, there's the bank account and there's the emotional account.
Yes, that was my other point. Thank you for
Well, sorry.
coming into my notes. But yeah, my thing is we got to stop enabling. We have to don't enable dependency. You know? And even though we're afraid of that empty nest, but we got to learn how to find joy in the empty nest.
Right.
Right. And the way I figured, because even though we don't have an empty nest, we still have our
Yeah,
21
God,
year.
why isn't our nest empty already?
No.
I want to walk around with my stuff out.
Our 21-year-old still lives with us, but he's in his own little world. He barely comes downstairs, so I feel like it's already an empty nest.
No,
but
it's
I
not.
learned how to take care of myself, and not only my children. Like back in the day, it was everything for them, and then you would leave yourself out. Now I'm starting to learn. Okay, take care of me first, and if they need help, of course I'll be there for you. But it's all for us now.
So I've written down some tips for myself, and hopefully some people could take this into account. Such as shift your mindset. Remind yourself that helping is not my duty; it's my choice. Another one is encourage independence. The more your child does for themselves,
Yes.
the better they will feel about their abilities. Encourage them to fail. I mean, hey, what better school of life is living life and just learning to fail and learning how to rebound from that and understanding that's not what
not
to do
everybody
next time.
gets what is it? What do you call those? Participation trophies.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, the participation trophies. Expect the pushback. Your child may resist initially, but that doesn't mean you're doing wrong. Offer guidance, not rescue.
Yes.
Instead of fixing things, point them towards resources
Yeah, what do
like
you
job
think you
support,
should do?
therapy,
Exactly.
or financial coaching. Again, we don't know it all, Not anymore, at least. We don't. But the good news is there's tons of resources that you could look into. And then remind yourself, prioritize your well-being.
Yes.
You matter too.
Yes. You
Protect
gotta take
your
care of
time.
yourself.
Protect your time, energy, and financial health. When parents step back, adult children have the opportunity to step up. And when they do, they often discover a sense of competence and confidence
Yes.
that they never knew. Just so you know, I got that from a Jeffrey Bernstein, PhD. He's a psychologist and an author of a few books, including 10 Days of a Less Defiant Child. And then this is one thing that I got. I honestly can't even tell you where I got this from, unfortunately, but I think it might become a mantra of mine. It's no lesson in life comes without a cost. So when I say life taught me, you better believe I paid the price. Okay, because we've all got our lives to live, and the mental health. I'm a big proponent of it, and you have to remind yourself that yes, although you've had children, but sometimes raising those kids has passed. You don't need to keep raising them into their 20s and 30s and 40s and beyond. They have to learn to adult themselves. Okay, guys? All right. So that's it for us this week. Just want to remind you guys, please follow, share, especially if this one
Comment.
hit home with you. Definitely share it with anybody that you can think of that may need to hear this.
Or any experiences that you have gone through that we probably lightly went over, or something that you would like to discuss, please let us know.
Comment. I think Apple Podcasts has a place where you could comment. I'm not sure if Spotify does.
Our website.
You could definitely go to our website, kevinlilhavewemet.com. You can email us at the same domain,
Yeah.
or at not the same domain, but the same email, Kevin Lil, have we met at gmail.com.
Most of the social media has the link tree, so just click on the link tree and
And if you're not sure, certainly email us, and we'll send you a note. We try to respond to everyone.
we
But
would love to also interview you if you want, and you could be on one of our next episodes. That'd be
yeah. I
great.
mean, if there's something
We
we've
love guests.
if there's something we've lightly touched on, and you feel that you've definitely got more experience, hands to you, hands down to you. We'll definitely, we can talk, and then we can talk about it online, or not online, but we could definitely record it and put it out for any others that may need to hear it, or you may feel like your voice is something that someone else may need to hear. With your experience, because again, although we've got plenty, there's plenty of things that we're not totally
We're
versed
not-
in.
yeah.
But thank you again for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
So thank you for listening to Kev.
And Lil,
Have we met? And here's hoping you have better relationships in your life. Goodbye.
Goodbye.